Welcome to everyone that has joined us today. We're so happy to have you here. My name is Nancy Fonseca, and I am Senior Vice President of Client Services, actually, with Great Place to Work. And I'm really excited about today's conversation because when you're in my line of business, professional services all related to helping drive culture in organizations, we regularly look for inspirational people that have done exceptional things in the leadership space in particular, and we look for bold leaders. And today we absolutely have a bold leader with us. And just before I introduce James, I want to share a little bit of context about this conversation. Last year, as Great Place to Work evaluated workplaces across industry and across the country, we really found that it was an exceptional year for identifying not only who bold leaders are, but what it actually means when it comes to life in an organization and the incredible impact that it has. And so as we talked about, how to share this information best, fireside chats were certainly one of the tools that we thought might be interesting. And so we want to sort of share the experience that we had, which really had a tremendous wow factor as we saw people really step up to drive incredible cultures in exceptionally difficult circumstances that we all, of course, are too well aware of. So today we've invited an exceptional leader to join us, and James Speman is exceptional, not only recognized by us, but as managing partner of Clark Wilson. He is also recognized as British Columbia, one of the British Columbian most influential business leaders. And so we're not alone in recognizing James and his skills and what he's created along with his team, of course, at Clark Wilson. But we really thought we wanted to highlight that. And so James comes from Clark Wilson. He is managing partner, and Clark Wilson practices in the commercial real estate and capital markets groups. His leadership is significant. He manages a business that's over 260 employees and growing. And I have to tell you, when I saw the statistics around how employees are experiencing that workplace, it was really quite outstanding. When you've got 91% of employees saying, yes, this is a great place to work, you know you're doing something right and something really valuable that you need to cherish. And I think James absolutely does that. So James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to kick us off sort of with a conversation that is always important when you talk to somebody from Great Place to Work. It always comes back to how do we drive trust and what's the value of trust in the workplace, because that's really what we talk about a lot. Our focus is always to say that trust is foundational to everything that happens in the workplace, and the absence of it is very obvious. The presence of it is sometimes not quite as obvious, but when you dig in deep, you start seeing how it's reflected in the success of an organization. I know that you have trust certainly as a foundational piece for your organization, and professional services, of course, is an industry that needs to foster trust in all that it does. So help me to understand a little bit more about how you build trust in Clark Wilson.
Well, yeah, certainly trust is foundational for us. It's one of our 4 core values, and we're going to talk about our core values a little bit later on. I often say around the firm here that occasionally I'll ask people, what business are we in? We're legal services, but we are in the relationship business. Relationships with each other, relationships with our clients, relationships with the regulators, and relationships are built on trust. And so trust is really important to our business. We build trust here in a number of different ways. Consistency. We are consistent in following our values. We're consistent in how we behave. We're consistent in how we treat each other. we're consistent, and I think, you know, if you are consistent as a leader, as a manager, as a parent, then there's a level of trust that's built because people know how you're going to react in certain situations. We build trust through transparency. We are consistently chatting with our lawyers and with the other members of our team about how we're doing, about our fears and our goals and our ambitions. And we just let people, you know, we're transparent, and we expect that of everybody, because that allows people to trust you when they know that you're actually not holding things back and you're being open and honest with them. Trust is a two-way street. You know, if you want to be trusted by people, you have to trust them as well. And as members of this team, we all trust each other. We trust each other to do the right things for each other. We trust each other to do the right things for our client. We trust each other to be, you know, loyal to the firm. Selflessly loyal to the firm is an expression we use around here. So, you know, when COVID hit, our team put a lot of trust in the leadership to make sure that we could, you know, deal with all the effects of the pandemic and move forward based on the foundation of the trust and the other core values that we have. You know, right from the start, when we saw other businesses around the country laying people off and reducing salaries, we made a very firm statement right from the start. We're not going to lay anybody off. Even people whose jobs couldn't be done, a receptionist or a host services, people whose jobs couldn't be done in the office because we were closed, you know, we didn't lay them off. We didn't reduce salaries, because that's consistent with our value of caring, and it's consistent with people trusting us to do the right thing, to help them support their families, and to make the way through the pandemic at a time of tremendous uncertainty. So that's a really good example. But it's about transparency, consistency, honesty, and giving back trust. You know, if you trust people, you know, to do things, then they'll trust you as well.
I love that. I'm making notes as we go along here. I don't know if you saw that, but when I hear sort of nuggets that I think, oh, I'd like to circle back to sort of dig in a little bit more, because I think it's really interesting. In particular, one piece that you identified there about consistency. So this is something that is quite elusive to many, many organizations, this ability to be consistent, not only depending on what's happening in the marketplace and how the organization might be faring, but also consistent across all people in the organization, this perspective of having a consistent experience. Can you share with me a little bit more about that, how you look to drive some of that consistency?
Consistency in terms of a team member's experience here. You know, we are open door, and you know, it's harder now because we're supposed to keep our doors closed because of, you know, airflow and things like that. But we are certainly figuratively open door, and always help everyone in the firm. You know, senior people in the firm act as mentors, and their doors are open to have questions and things like that. We are, you know, we have a hierarchy. I'm the managing partner. We've got directors of different functional areas. We've got, you know, department heads for different departments and things. But I believe that on a social basis, we are non-hierarchical. And so people are treated first name basis. I'm apt to, I'm a terrible tease. And so I'm apt to go down and you know, harass, you know, tease, and not harass, that's a bad word, tease the kids, the young people in our mail room. There's a few there that have been there for a long time, and they're quick to tell me if I'm on one of my afternoon walks around the office to stay in touch with people, they'll look at me and say, get back to work. Which I think is just a sign of how we treat each other. And so consistency of experience, which is important to us, is consistent with our idea that when if the clients come to us in person, or if they come to us on our website, or if they come to us by telephone call, they get a consistent experience as well, in terms of a caring, respectful, high quality type of professional service. So.
That's great. It's elusive for many. Many organizations really strive for this and find it extremely difficult to achieve. So I know, because I've seen, of course, the data on the statistics, how your team and the organization is feeling. I know that you have had success in this space. So yeah, that's wonderful.
I would say one thing that I thought of as you were talking about consistency. it's easier for an organization like us to be consistent in our vision and in how we work and how we look to the future than it is for, say, companies that are public companies. Because in a public company, the goal is really quarterly results, quarterly results, quarterly results, and so they're always looking for the short term. How are we doing? And if you're in a private organization like ourselves, which is 110 years old, it's easier to be consistent. So I recognize that that's, not every organization can be that way because the world shifts and, you have to sort of change your views a little bit from time to time.
110 years old. Wow. That's exceptional, right? And, that doesn't happen by accident. It's obviously, lots of care over the years by many leaders that I'm sure have demonstrated incredible capacity to really build culture and drive an organization that's ready to be innovative and change. Making these sort of connections with individuals and thinking about others. I'd like to dig in a little bit on that aspect of this, because I think it's this creating connections where you've had quite a bit of success, not only connections, I think, with employees, but certainly connections with clients. And that has driven maybe lots of the growth in the organization, lots of that consistency in the organization. Help me to understand how you actually do that in a more sort of practical way.
How we create connection with certainly internally is something that we focus on very specifically. And even before the pandemic, we were always finding ways to create connections between the different practice groups within the firm, because we do operate in different sort of practice groups, serving in many cases different clients and doing different things for them. So, constantly communicating. Certainly through the pandemic, we emphasized very regular weekly town halls among all the different practice groups. Our HR department reached out to our to the members of the firm on a weekly basis, at least once a week, and more for some people that we knew were living alone and didn't have family connections or social connections in their world. We do a few things to bring people together. We have what we call our 33 meeting. So it's a long story why we call it the 33, but once a month we would gather in our largest training room for a stand-up breakfast meeting, all the lawyers and some of our other members of the team. We'd have one person host it, so they got to pick the music, they got to pick the food. We mill around for 5 or 7 minutes as people sort of got ready to go, and then we have 25 minutes at most of be brief, be brilliant, be gone. And I talked to 3 or 4 different people in the firm about a success they have, or if they're new to the firm, what do they do and how can we help them grow and build their practice and things like that. Really high energy, energetic thing, trying to get everybody in the firm together. Now we do them by Zoom. It's not quite as much fun because we haven't got the breakfast, but we do the music still. We do something called the Unplugged. So once a month I'll sit, usually it was a late afternoon in our lounge, maybe there's a beer involved. And we'd sit on a couple of bar stools and I would just interview one of our lawyers. Again, where do you come from? Why do you want to be a lawyer? What was your first job? Tell us about your family, some traveling you might have done, your other activities. And then how can we help you? How can you help us? Just trying to connect people all together. And so, again, we've continued to do that. Unfortunately, again, we have to do it by Zoom for now. But it's still, when we get regularly 70, 80 people at those things, of our lawyers. So most of the lawyers come to learn about each other. And then, of course, the town hall meetings that we've really amped up while we're not working in the office. Staff town halls where, again, we're transparent. We talk about the things that are going on in the firm. We talk about our remote work policy, our return to work policy, which has been on hold like many people. We talk about how the firm's doing financially, all that sort of stuff. And so just constantly trying to stay in touch with people, open, honest communication to build those relationships.
The connections are so important, and taking it not just from the professional, but to the personal side, I think it is really incredible. It sounds like there's a real focus on helping people to develop, and maybe that comes from understanding what others in the organization might be doing, and this perspective on having more cooperative and maybe collaborative relationships. It sounds like it's absolutely been part of the success of the organization. Do you find that people are really feeling like they're all in the boat together? Is this something that you experience?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And that's an expression we use, right? We're all on the same boat, pulling on the same oars or pulling on the same rope in the same direction. You know, all that stuff that the great management people talk about. And I do believe that there's a feeling we're all in it together. You know, we did something which really brought people together and I think allowed us to share the pandemic experience, which I think is really cool, and I know a lot of people felt was cool. And it came about by accident. You know, as we were leaving the office in March of 2020, I started writing emails to people saying, "Okay, you know, we're going to leave, and but things are going to be okay. Here's how we're going to do it," and you know, just sort of planning things, but also messages about how we were feeling about going forward. You know, it's only going to be 3 months, we said, as most businesses felt at the time. And so I wrote an email to the firm about 4 days in a row, and I thought, well, they got to be getting pretty tired of hearing from me. So on the 5th day, I had our chief operating officer write one to talk about it. And then I wrote another one, which was more about how I felt and how my family was doing and things like that, because I just thought it was important to share with people my feelings about the pandemic. And then I had one of our senior partners write one, which was about, we've been through worse before. You know, we've been through a couple of big recessions. The firm had some tough years and we've been through worse and we'll be fine. And then I got a practice group chair too. And then it evolved. And so we ended up having staff members, people who were brand new to the firm, receptionists, host service people, senior partners, a couple retired people, write a daily email every morning at 8 o'clock from the 15th of March through the end of the year. We had a daily email, which people open up their computer and they got a message and it, you know, they evolved from a young person talking about their great grandparents coming to North America with nothing and how, you know, we can survive this, to, hey, I went camping for the first time. And a lot of pictures of cats and dogs and children. It was really a really cool experience that I think really brought everybody together and gave us that feeling like we're all here together. We're all experiencing this together in our own different ways. And people, you know, some people were very open about, and we went through Mental Health Week, which is something we do a lot. We do every year. We follow the Canadian Mental Health Association's Mental Health Week. I shared some of the mental health things that have affected my family and that I felt at the time. It was like September and I had just come off a summer where I was really crabby to everybody and I knew that I was not being my best self, and shared that with people. So it was a really cool experience. I'm working very hard to try and find the next thing that we can do to continue on, because frankly, we ran out of people. We had about 160 different people write them, which was pretty cool out of over 240 people at that time. So it was a cool experience.
That, I think, sounds fabulous best practice. I may use that one if you don't mind when I share sort of some thoughts with other clients that we work with about the incredible things that you can do that don't cost anything, right? But it takes a little creativity, and it takes what I hear you not saying, but I think underlies all of this is this sense of being strong enough to be vulnerable. Right? People willing to share their personal experience, their personal stories. And sometimes those are, you know, uplifting and great. And we love to hear them. They're inspirational. In some cases, maybe they're more of a challenge, right? And really demonstrate the vulnerable side that we might have. And it sounds like across the organization, people were willing to share.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's because the senior people that participated early on were willing to share. And so we set the standard. Plus, again, it's easier to share those types of vulnerabilities by an email than it is in person. It's easier to do it because you're almost anonymous, even though it's, hey, here I am doing this. It's easier than if you're standing up in the front of a room. And I've learned that in other circumstances as well. It's harder to stand in front of a room and tell people your vulnerabilities than it is to send them in an email to people who aren't there right in front of you. So, but it all came about by accident. That was you know, like it just was totally organic and accidental. So, which is usually how the best things come about, is by accident.
I agree. And we heard about a lot of that type of thing happening through COVID, right? As people were trying to find different, new, unique ways of doing things, communicating, developing culture, all of this. So it sounds like it became something that is quite successful at the time. And I imagine that across the organization where people are, you know, feeling insecure, everybody was feeling insecure. Of course, last year, independent of, I think, role and function, I think people just, you know, got a little nervous about all the changes that were happening so dramatically to not only professional life, but certainly personal life.
Yeah.
Just before I circle back to something that we touched on, and I didn't get a chance to dig in a little bit deeper, I'm going to remind the audience that you do have the ability to ask questions. So please feel free to ask any questions you might have of myself or of James. We're happy to answer at the end of the session. We certainly will go back and make sure we cover some of those. Anything that we don't get a chance to respond to, we can certainly take offline and respond afterwards. So please do feel free to sort of express your thoughts or ask any questions that you might have of James or myself. So I'm going to circle back to something that you talked about, which I do think is sort of underlies everything that you probably do from the professional perspective, but also from the cultural perspective. And it comes back to values and helping people to find meaning in the work that they do. I know because, again, I have the privilege of seeing lots of data on Clark Wilson and on the experience that people are having. But maybe you could help me understand a little bit more about sort of how you've driven some of these pieces. So, lots of organizations put posters up on the wall that say, hey, here's our values and this is what we live to. And then the real experience is quite different. I know that there is that consistency of, what we say our values are and what you're experiencing at work. Help me to understand how that's come about and how you've helped people to find meaning at work.
Sure. Well, we have 4 core values, and they are in no particular order: quality, caring, trust, and teamwork. And the first thing we do is I talk about them all the time. I talk about them in recruiting. I talk about them in our staff town halls. I talk about them with lawyers. And I say, and I believe, and I think it's true, that they inform all that we do. So all the decisions we made are based on and are referenced back to quality, caring, trust, and teamwork. Quality sort of speaks for itself. Quality in all that we do, quality for our clients, being innovative. We have an innovation task force, innovation advisory panel, I guess we call them, which is made up of people from across the firm, and everyone's encouraged to put their ideas forward. And sometimes if your ideas are selected, then you get a cash prize and things like that, bragging rights, things like that. Trust, we've talked about. Trust is fundamental to the business that we're in. And so, it's just, we trust each other. We want our clients to trust us. We trust our clients, frankly. Excuse me. Teamwork, just because of the nature of the business we're in. We work in teams. We work with different people at different levels on a transaction or on a file, providing their expertise to it. And so, there's lots of things that we're all specialists. And so, in order to get something done, you need to draw in the specialists from around the firm to get things done. And we work in teams with our clients as well, and others. Our suppliers and the management, the group, and all that. We're all working in teams on different things from time to time. The system people supporting us in order to create the product that we have for our clients. And lastly, the one that really, came to the forefront in the last 18 months to 2 years is caring. Just this culture of caring for each other, being aware of each other, understanding when someone's going through a medical issue, understanding when people have mental health issues, which we've done a lot of training in the last couple of years on mental health. We've sent managers to training to recognize when people are having mental health issues. We talk about it. We do our best to make it a safe work environment for people to express the fact that I'm not feeling my best today. I'm not my best self today. Because all of us have that experience, frankly, at some point in it. So if you talk about your values, if you agree that they're your values, and every 4 or 5 years, we kind of go through a process of just making sure, okay, we're all okay with these. And right now, actually, we're trying to go through a process because we have those 4 words, but for each one of those words, because we're lawyers, we've got, a little paragraph about what they mean. And that wording was written 25 years ago, and it's out of date. So we're actually going through a process right now of trying to reevaluate the values, but most importantly, reevaluate the way in which we express what they mean. And we got lots of good examples, particularly about caring and trust, because of what we've gone through in the last 24 months.
That's excellent. I made a note here: renewal of the values. I think that's interesting because the words themselves may not change, but the meaning may change, absolutely, depending on what's happening in the organization, the demographics of the organization, all of that. I mean, it's a live organism, right? That's always evolving and shifting. This is, I think, maybe something that many organizations don't do. They kind of figure, you know, we like what we have and we're going to leave it without really thinking about how they may shift over time. So I think that is maybe one of those pieces that enables you to be as you know, flexible and the ability to, you know, survive over 100 years comes with that flexibility, that always reinventing and renewal of the experiences that are happening and shifting and flowing with the times. So that's clearly working for you. So I look forward to seeing if some changes come out of that sort of thoughtful process of thinking, you know, what are our values today?
Yeah, so do I. I'm part of the committee, and it'll be interesting. I'm married to those 4 words, and you know, we might not end up with the same 4 words or 5 words or 7 or 2 or whatever it is, and that'll be good because we're involving the whole firm through different constituencies in this. But for someone who's lived those values here for over 20 years, it's going to be hard for me to give up if we give up those 4 words for different words, which reflects, you know, who we are. It's going to cause me some dissonance, but it's good for an old guy, I guess.
It's all about developing, right?
That's all about moving forward. That's right. Exactly.
You gave me the perfect segue for my next sort of topic that I wanted to talk about. Help me to understand, you know, it's an organization, 260 some odd team members. Help me to understand how you drive development, because while it's a big firm, it's not, you know, a huge organization. How do you drive development? How do you keep people growing within their roles if perhaps there isn't, you know, too much opportunity to, you know, move up or move laterally? Help me to understand what some of those sort of practices are that you have that you've found successful.
Sure. You know, from the perspective of the lawyers, you know, obviously we have to do our own mandated continuing professional development, but there's a natural progression from, you know, student to associate to partner, and through that process to being a, you know, a task doer, a question answerer, to someone who starts asking questions, to someone who becomes an advisor. And that's a natural progression through your career as well. And so we have all sorts of internal programs for, you know, practice skills, leadership skills, which we offer throughout the course of the year. We actually also work with our lawyers on the financial skills, and sort of not the financial skills in terms of reading a financial statement, but how does our business operate, understanding how the business runs, because you don't learn that in school. And so when you know, and I think it's hard sometimes for people to come to an organization and understand, you know, that side of our business. We do. You talked about, you know, we do actually have many examples of people that have joined us as a receptionist or in the mailroom, and then moved up through, you know, a billing clerk to a legal assistant, and then doing the paralegal course and being paralegals. We have longevity here is astonishing. You know, we recognize people for every 5 years of service. I regularly recognize people for 30 years and 35 and 40. And we had a 45-year employee the other day. And, you know, some of them came in, you know, we have a woman who's been here for well over 40 years. I mean, she retired at 42 years or something, and then she didn't like retirement, so she'd come back part-time, and she literally started in the mailroom, and now she's you know, we ended up as a senior person running one of our departments. And so there's lots of examples of that. We are way more interested in developing people than trying to recruit from outside if we can. And so, you know, all of our staff have we have a tuition reimbursement program, $1,000 a year if you want to go take courses. We have a lot of mentoring among the staff, but yeah, there's lots of, we're very focused on helping our people develop and our team members develop and move up to the next level in the organization. And that's recognized in the longevity we have, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. That is so interesting for me, because I have to tell you, regularly, I have the privilege of speaking to many organizations, and some of them are sort of, you know, in the sort of under 500 employee kind of range. And much larger than you, they have challenges with developing people. This perspective of how they develop people, given that there may not be so many opportunities to move up or to move laterally. And yet you seem to have managed to overcome that. And the culture itself seems to lend itself to developing people as simply a non-issue. It's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, we could always be better. And I mean, you know, in the course of 260 people, you know, not everybody's been here for 30 or 35 years, and not everybody has developed in that way. But we certainly encourage you to look for opportunities, and we will support anyone who wants to go and do more education and things like that with the tuition subsidy and you know, job training for on-site job training. So
that's great. Well, you haven't managed to keep folks for that long, though, without having a really well-established structure of appreciation, sometimes formal, sometimes informal. So talk to me a little bit about how you show sort of appreciation for a job well done. What types of programs do you have, and what does that look like? How does that come to life? Because it's, again, one of these challenging ways in which people have a hard time sometimes, you know, saying thank you or recognizing. And the 5-year award is excellent, but in other creative ways that you have for showing appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of things. We're obviously thanking people in person for the work they do. When someone does something particularly recognizable, we'll have a kudos email used to go out, and now that we've got internet, you know, there'll be a notice on the internet about a practice group or a transaction. We closed a big transaction the other day and did a shout out to the team members who worked on that transaction because it was a notable transaction. So regularly, 2 or 3 times a week, there's a note on the internet about someone who's presented, or a team member who's really stepped up and stepped out to really work hard on a particular matter and had a great success. We recognize work anniversaries. Everybody gets recognized for their work anniversary. We have the long service awards I talked about, starting at 5 years. You know, people get bouquets of flowers. They get $100 a year of service with a tax top off. We get a note on our internet again. Retiring employees, for people, not everyone who leaves, but when people retire after many years, we'll have an event to celebrate their service for the firm. I recall one fondly where we had 2 people leave, one after 43 years and one after 44 years. That was in 2017, so it was a few years ago, which was our 107th year, and they had both worked with the founder of the firm. So across 107 years, both of them had worked with the person who started the firm, and they had been here for 43 years. So I just love that story. I think that's really cool. But people get, medical and bereavement leave. We'll make sure we send, flowers or meal service or whatever we need to help them out. New parents, newly married people, they get, the flowers, and the people with new babies get a gift basket, things like that. New people coming in get gift baskets. I'm always around looking for new people who've arrived because there's frequently candy in the gift baskets, which, they should be sharing with the managing partner. We have a holiday bonus program. Everyone, we pay bonuses at the holiday season. We paid prosperity bonuses the last couple of years because we had good years. We shared that with our staff. So lots of different ways to recognize people and to make sure that we're recognizing all the hard work that all of our team members do.
Wow, that's a long list. There's a lot going on all the time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's funny how I think about all the programs that you have, and for the audience. James and I spoke last week, and I asked him to, share a little bit with me about his family, and it was sort of like, it's just how we do things around here. It was a little bit the sort of feeling that I got from the conversation we had, and I thought, wow, that it's so ingrained, this experience of appreciation, of thanking people, of developing people. So much of that seems so ingrained that it's kind of just how things get done. And then it's nice to hear sort of some sort of the articulated perspectives of how specific things are happening, because on the day-to-day, it probably just feels like a completely natural way of functioning, but not all organizations have quite this many layers sort of to the opportunities to drive culture. So I'm happy to hear all of this. I'm going to quickly see if one of my colleagues that's helping us support put on the fireside chat today, if she has any questions for us from the audience. I believe there was a couple. Katie?
Thanks, Nancy. Yes, we have a great question from Catherine. It seems many leaders are struggling themselves with fear and anxiety, but feel they need to present as strong at this time and are unwilling to own up to that struggle. Any ideas for how I can help those leaders above me? I worry the ripple effect, and I already see how it affects the entire organization.
Interesting. Very good.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I can see that that occurring. You know, I guess you have to be comfortable that that if you share your fears and anxieties, that you won't be dismissed for it, right? That people won't look at you as weak. And I guess people are so worried about appearing strong at all the times, and if you to be strong, you can't have any fears or anxieties. And I don't share all my fears and anxieties because that would be it's kind of scary to some people probably. But I think it's just being comfortable in your own skin and knowing that if people trust you, and they that they're going to accept the fact, and frankly, it's great to be able to say, like with the mental health week one, when we had it, I really remember back last September that I really was cranky and grouchy and I was feeling burnout, and I knew you read the signs of burnout, and there I was, right? And so why not say it? I'm experiencing burnout. I'm sure you're all experiencing burnout too. So let's work together to figure out some strategies. Here's some strategies. This is the one I'm going to use. And, but I can see how for many people, and frankly, I'm at an age when, because I'm in my early 60s now, he says, which is probably the biggest fear I'd have is to say that to an audience like this. If you're in your 40s, you're way less likely to be comfortable expressing those types of things. As you get older, you get more comfortable as to who you are and more confident who you are, and so you're less likely to fear, saying to people or your friends, I'm not myself today. I'm feeling really down, or I'm afraid of this, or I'm worried about what's, going forward. And the other thing for me is I'm a relentless optimist. And so, I maybe don't have as many anxieties as I should have because I look at the world through rose-colored glasses. But I think it comes with age too. But mostly from the perspective, if you're in an organization and you wish that your leader could be more like that, maybe just share your fears to start with. Open up yourself, and then that person might be more likely to open up to you.
That's great. I very much like your response, because I do think as we progress in our career, people become a little bit more comfortable with who they are, sort of in their own skin, and then it becomes that much easier to share sort of the vulnerable side. I think it probably also comes from the fact that your organization itself has a tremendous focus on trust. So there's that foundational piece where people are enabled to be able to share some of those challenges that they might be facing, because there is such a foundational layer of trust that allows people to speak sort of openly about perspectives that they might have or what they might be experiencing. So yeah, if maybe starting to think about trust and then layering those other pieces on might be a good option.
Right.
Depends on the leader, right? Depends
Yep.
very much on the leader. Katie, do we have any other sort of immediate questions or comments that somebody'd like to share?
Yeah, so James, you talked a lot about how the firm has a lot of long-term employees that retire. Succession planning is a big area of concern for management. What are your tips for a successful handoff?
Well, I mean, so our issue, and the one that comes to mind, is really succession of lawyers and succession of their relationships and the client relationships. And what we've really focused on is and it's interesting to me, and this might surprise people who aren't lawyers on the call, but for many, for our senior lawyers who are retiring, their biggest concern is making sure that their clients are looked after with the same level of care and attention as they have been by the lawyer who's leaving. And so it's a function of making sure that you put in place a new person who's going to take over those relationships, and in a way that convinces the person who's retiring that everything will be okay. This group of clients that you've worked with will be looked after. And we've been pretty successful with that one. Empowering younger people, whether other members of our team, with the knowledge and the opportunity to go and grasp, go and take that opportunity. Here's the leadership opportunity. Go and let's figure out what, if you're going to be the leader in this area, what skills do you need to have, and do you know, and among that array of skills, what don't you have yet, and then helping them sort of develop those skills so that they can step in 3 or 4 years going forward. It's really identifying people, making sure they're interested is always a key, and then sort of helping them develop the skills necessary to go forward. But it comes down to, and I hate to harp on this, it comes down to trust, right? Like if you encourage someone who's the next person in line that they're going to have this opportunity, they have to trust that, in fact, if they invest the time to learn the area or to develop the skills, they're actually going to get that opportunity. And on the other side, when someone's leaving, they have to trust that, what I have here, what I've developed, this responsibility that I feel for whatever my area of expertise is going to get looked after. It'll be all right. Because I think that's a big fear for people as they retire. It's not just looking forward to what am I going to do with my time and how am I going to survive with, have I got enough money? It's also, most people who work in organizations, they care about what they're doing, and they want to make sure that the organization is left better than when they joined. And part of that is who's going to take over for me and continue to pursue and take on this role. And you have to convince them that the next person in line is equally capable as you, probably smarter than you, because the younger members of our team are so capable and so smart. So it's that trust on both sides.
I guess that goes hand in hand with the perspective of developing people, right? So the only way you can be effective in succession is if you've invested in those that are coming afterwards, and driving that development and making those investments early on. It also sounds like not only at Clark Wilson are you sort of building great lawyers, but you're also building great business people that are able to sort of think of the business in a more holistic way. That probably has a big impact on succession, right? Think about how business functions.
Yeah, we're certainly trying. We're certainly trying to get people to look at the whole organization holistically and think about the moving parts and how they come together and stuff like that. Because when you are, doing a job, as working as hard as all of our team members do, it's easy to focus just on what you're doing. And but it's important to make sure you understand the whole and your part in it, and other people's parts in it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. I have to say, I have very much enjoyed this conversation. I'm wondering, just before we sign off here, if you have any sort of tips or advice, anything that you might like to impart for those who maybe want to build an incredible culture, not like yours, because it will always be different, but build an incredible culture and really have that great work experience that their team can also experience.
I don't know. I don't think I have any words of wisdom. I mean, it's all about people, right? It's all about people. It's all about relationships. No matter what business you're in the relationship business. You might think you're making widgets, but you're in the relationship business. And, whether it's your team members or your customers or your shareholders or your regulators or, whatever, you got to, it's all about relationships. So if you think about, and all you're making is a widget. So if you think about things that way and you focus that way, that's been our success anyway.
Yeah, I guess thinking more broadly than just what's the job, but what's the impact that everything has, and those relationships certainly do define the culture that you have, right? It's whether it's with clients or with each other. James, I have very much enjoyed this conversation. I love learning a little bit more about Clark Wilson. I know that the organization is exceptional. And I know that your bold leadership was a big part of the growth and success that has come in recent years. And so thank you very much for sharing your perspectives on the organization. I do appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks. It's been a great pleasure. I feel bad taking as much credit as you've been throwing at me today, because we've got a wonderful team. Our culture is the result of everyone's efforts, but it's nice for the firm to be recognized. And thanks for having me, and thanks to your crew for organizing this series.
Thank you for joining us. To everyone that's on the call, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.